My name is Juliana Almassri, and today I'm going to talk about the social media and information operation in case of Palestine. My table of content is an introduction, information operation and their use on social media, shaping a narrative as a form of information operation as collaborative work, and a conclusion. So the use of social media has become a vital tool for both Palestinian and Israelis to share their narratives, as well as for external actors to spread their own agendas regarding the ongoing conflict in Palestine. However, the use of social media in this content has also been utilized as a tool for information operations, where both sides engage in propaganda and misinformation campaign to shape the public opinion. And it's very important to investigate the use of social media in the content of the Palestinian conflict that has also highlighted issues around freedom of expression, for example. It also intends to argue the social platforms and their uneven enforcement of content policies, which has resulted in the removal of Palestinian voices and the silencing of critical perspectives, which has further complicated efforts to promote understanding and dialogue between the Israeli and the Palestinians. Now, information operation are the use of tactics and technologies to manipulate or shape the public opinion and perception by spreading first propaganda and false information or based narratives. In the context of Palestine, information operations have been increasingly utilized on social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and much more as a way to influence the narrative around the conflict. This can include the use of images, videos, misleading headlines, or false claims. And also, targeted advertising is also a tactique that has been used in information operation on social media, that ads can be targeted to specific groups or demographics in order to shape their perception of a particular issue or to promote a certain viewpoint. Shaping narrative as a form of information operation can have a significant impact on the perception of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The conflict has deep historical roots and is often characterized by competing narrative from both sides. The way the conflict is framed and presented to the public can influence the public opinion and shape policy decisions from the West areas, Europeans, and even all over the world. In case of Palestine, information operation can be used to shape narrative in various ways. For example, the Israeli government has historically presented itself as a victim of terrorism and portrayed its military operation as necessary for self-defense. On the other side, Palestinian groups have portrayed themselves as freedom fighters resisting an occupation. So the narrative on each side chooses to present and that they can have a significant impact on how the conflict is received. In recent years, social media has become an essential tool for shaping narrative in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Both sides use social media also as an information, as I said, and to shape the public opinion. For example, Israeli authorities use social media to present their perspective on the conflict and often emphasizing their effort to maintain security and to prevent terrorism. And the Palestinian group use social media to highlight the impact of the Israeli occupation and to garner support for their cause. In addition, the Israeli authorities have been criticized for limiting the freedom of speech and restricting access to inform the Palestinian territories. So these operations involve multiple individuals or group working together. And in the case of Palestine, it may involve the coordinated effort of activists, journalists, and social media influencers to amplify a particular perspective on the conflict. For example, Groups may work together to raise awareness of the impact of the Israeli occupation on Palestine communities and share stories of Palestinian suffering and mobilize support for political action. It can also involve the sharing of resources and expertise. For example, activist groups may collaborate with legal experts to develop campaigns that focus on international law and human rights. It can also be effective in shaping narratives surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because they can reach a wide audience and create a sense of momentum and urgency around a particular issue. Artificial intelligence, that is very important at the moment in social media, can also play a significant role in shaping narratives on social media in the context of Palestine as a tool that can be used to analyze large amounts of data, identify trends and patterns, and automate tasks such as content moderation. Also, it can analyze the social media posts and other online content related to the conflict. Those tools can identify patterns in the language used, such as which words and phrases are most commonly used to describe the conflict, and can provide insight into the public sentiment and opinions. Can also be used for content moderation on social media platforms, helping to identify and remove harmful or inappropriate content. And in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the social media platforms have been criticized for allowing the spread of the hate speech and violence. Also, analyzing pattern in social media activity and identify the potential resources of disinformation and propaganda by analyzing patterns in the behavior of the users who spread the false information or the misleading information. So as an example, I would like to share with you some event that happened on the April 7th, 2023. So actually here, the rockets that have been on the news attacking on Thursday from Lebanon appeared to be in a response. 1 second, please. Yeah, attacking to be in response to an Israeli police raid early on Wednesday on a mosque at a sensitive holy site in Jerusalem that had promoted widespread anger among Palestinians and arrested hundreds of Palestinians. So during the holy month of Ramadan, and you know it's very important for Muslim people, for example, and the Israeli soldiers started to just arrest the Palestinian people. Around more than 500 Palestinians were in jail, and a lot of people have been also killed. And it's been a lot of attacks. So in return, what's happened? You can see also on social media from the, for example, between the Palestinian and the Israeli side. So in the photo up, you can see the horror in Israel, and you can see the difference of the title, A Difficult Night in Gaza, and there is a different things happening in the two situations, and how the social media focuses from the BBC, CNN, or even a lot different social media patterns or resources that they are focusing, for example, more on the Israeli side, but less on the Gaza side. Also, the resources that the Palestinians have, for example, is not strong enough to be more spread in worldwide, so they can say their opinion, and they don't have the right to express their feelings because they might go to the jail, if not from the Israeli side, but even from the Palestinian side as well. The most used title for what happened on the 7th of April, it's like breaking Israel is bombing Lebanon, Israeli policies raid Al-Aqsa Mosque, and dramatic videos shows the Israeli forces storms. We already prepares reserve forces following a barrage of rockets attack from Gaza and Lebanon. So a lot of people said everything, a lot of titles said everything. Despite that, at that time, nobody knew what was really happening. Nobody knew. About the public opinion, I found people from all over the world, from UK, Pakistan, Arabic countries, commenting on the videos on the YouTube. Now I see why people hate Israel so much. So it's something like with and without what is happening. And now I'm ashamed to say that one of my close relatives was a diplomat to Israeli. They aren't Israeli police, absolutely disgusting. And a lot of people, they are commenting, and nobody can prevent anyone from commenting. So they can just post, for example, on YouTube. But on Facebook, it's different because usually when you put some kind of words on the post, and if the artificial intelligence can find these words in the post, your account will be deactivated totally 100%. They will prevent you from commenting on liking posts or even posting, and they will shut down your account if necessary. On the other side, what's happened? So I said before, there were attacks from the Israeli to the Palestinians during Ramadan. There was on the other side, the Katyusha rocks were fired from Lebanon into the northern Israel, one striking near Nahariya and the other near the kibbutz Haziv. No damage or injury was reported. A witness said that the rocket has sparked panic with residents entering bunkers and children being evacuated from schools. Now, who did this? Who is the responsible? Nobody knows. Some people say it's from Gaza. Somebody said it's from Lebanon. Somebody said it's from Iran. And a lot of people started to go on social media and talk, but exactly nobody knows who was behind these attacks. About the Katyusha rocks, just as information, they are relatively simple and inexpensive to produce. They have been used both by state militaries and by non-state actors, and where the combatants have the limited resources or facing an enemy with superior fireworks, and the rockets have a range around 3 to 15 kilometers. So the most used titles as well and public opinions. For example, people started to write at least 34 rockets launched from Lebanon into Israeli, and nobody actually decided how many, because some people, they say 5 and some people, they say 34. So nobody knows, but there is misleading information. There are false information. And Lebanon militaries fire rockets at Israel. Nobody knows if it's true or if it's not true. Nobody knows who the person or who beyond, who are the groups who beyond those attacks, for example. Israeli bomb Lebanon and Gaza as Netanyahu promised enemies will pay. Dozens of rockets fired from Lebanon into Israel, dozens. So what's the titles, what's in the social media is affecting directly how people think about the situation from the both sides, either Israeli or the Palestinian ones. And here, as you can see, Israel unrest, Hamas launched rockets attack on Tel Aviv, but it's from the Lebanon side. So which one is true? And for example, there are other opinions like RIP Lebanon, thank you Lebanon, love from Indonesia, nice work from Nigeria, you attack Israel, Israel wins, you lose land, you cry about losing land, how many times do you want to repeat this process? So you will find people going from supporting, not supporting, and they have no idea who support, why do they support. And that's why it's very important on social media when someone wants to go to know exactly who is beyond that social media, who is beyond that television media process, who is doing this, who is doing that, and who is beyond these things, to make sure of the information first. So these things are very important. And as a quick conclusion, in summary, social media has played a significant role in shaping the narratives around the Palestinian conflict and has been used as a tool for both Palestinian and Israelis, as well as external actors, to advance their own interest. And that's why it's important to question the source of information. Second thing, shaping narratives through information operation can have a significant impact on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The way the conflict is framed and presented to the public can influence the public opinion and shape the policy decision. As such, it is important to critically evaluate the information presented and seek out a variety of perspectives when seeking to understand the conflict. So either if there's a time for peace between the two nations and the social media is playing on words and playing to show some things, not the other side. So this makes the conflict to be more harder to be fixed from the both sides. So the social media is also preventing the peace process between the two nations. And collaborative information operation can be an effective way to shape narratives surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by working together and amplify a specific perspective and share resources and expertise. Groups can mobilize supports for political action and raise awareness of critical issues. So when we post something and when we put hashtags, Palestine hashtags or Israeli hashtags, when we put something about the conflict itself and it reaches more people. So in that side, we need to take care what we are posting, who we are following, and why, what is the behind the post and all these kind of things. So this is my presentation for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any question, you can just ask me or you can contact me by my email address. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hello, good evening. I'm Melek Adsiz from Turkey. I'm the PhD student in National University of Public Service, and it's my second year. Today, I'm for you Turkey East Mediterranean policy. And before starting, I would like to thank Circular Architecture Committee for this opportunity and for this suggestion to attend this conference. Thank you a lot. And today, like to talk about one of the difficult topics for my country, for Turkey is Mediterranean policy. So, shortly, for the table of contents, Turkey, and I would like to mention the Turkey and the Eastern Mediterranean, and also the Turkey's key challenges in that region, also military presence and the maritime security, and then I'll go to the conclusion part. So, if we go to the map, if we go to that region, the Eastern Mediterranean is a region of a strategic importance for Turkey, and the recent developments in the area have drawn significant attention. And also for Turkey, actively pursues a policy in that region due to its geopolitical situation and interest in energy resources. And Turkey's strategic importance in the Eastern Mediterranean part is also a significant actor in that region because Turkey has long coastline. And Turkey aims to protect its strategic interest in the Eastern Mediterranean part and giving the potential energy resources and the sea trade routes and issues such as the Cyprus dispute and the status of the islands with Greece and also the agency also influence the Turkish Mediterranean policy, these all parts. So you can see the map and you can see the countries in that region. The strategic importance of the Eastern Mediterranean, which has always been interest to the great powers with its political, military, economic part or commercial potential, has continued to increase in every period of history, has never lost its geoeconomic and geopolitical importance as it has been world trade. Having hydrocarbon resources and paving the way of there for many important wars like the civil wars in Syria, in Egypt, and what's happening in Libya, these all regions are one of the challenges places. And consider the turning points the history took place with its idea of dominating this geography is since the history is one of the important parts. The trade center, Suez Canal. Let me show you the end slide. And the trade center, the Suez Canal enabled transportation from the Indian Ocean and connects the countries to European markets and the Atlantic Ocean. Sea link between Asia and Europe since 1869. And this is only one issue, but this is only one of the important issues as well. And in and transit route energy exports from the Eastern Mediterranean. And the region has a strategic position with the current and potential oil and gas pipelines, and the region plays an important role in transit energy transportation, and with million barrels and corridor. So I took this all information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Turkey Eastern Mediterranean policies, and I'm trying to, okay. And Turkey's Eastern Mediterranean policies are built upon those two bases, according to the Republic of Turkey. So one is delimiting the maritime jurisdiction areas fairly and equitably in line with international law and protecting its sovereignty right over its continent itself. And the second one is securing the Turkish side rights and the interest over hydrocarbon resources as an equal partner of the island. Just as their explanation designs on anyone's rights, they will not let anyone insure their rights either. So you can see the Recep Tayyip Erdogan signature under this photo. And these are their explanation in our own first sources. So Turkey and the East Mediterranean, the countries, as you saw from the neighboring countries, Cyprus, smaller Hatay province, the Greek islands, and the countries of Lebanon and Syria, Palestine, Israel, Jordan, and Egypt are the important factors in these regions. So you are seeing right now to the Turkish coastline in that region. And I took this information all from the Turkish Foreign Affairs as well. So maritime jurisdiction consists the country's territorial waters, exclusive economic zone, and continental shelf. In this part, territorial waters is one of the important factor as well. Also exclusive economic zone as well. So what is this exclusive economic zone? When I was searching this topic, I was just curious about it because I didn't know any information. I would like to show you in a short way. It's a maritime region in which a state has exclusive rights to exploration and exploitation of marine resources, including water and wind energy, in accordance with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So this area extends from the coastal edge of the state to the sea up to 200 nautical miles out to sea. So this information is important because all states have miles and coastal shafts. So according to Turkey, you can see the lines. And Greece part, you can also see from the Greece part, but I found the Turkish version. That's why I put the Turkish information. Yunanistan means Greece, and you can see according to the Greece how it should be for the Turkey. So huge. Huge means according to the Greece. They accept the different miles, they accept the different coastal lines, and Turkey accept the different coastal lines, and so it makes challenges between the both countries. And this is not only one part, another part is also the exploration and drilling activities of Turkish petroleum. I'm saying Turkish because in that part, you can see in the first picture, the Cyprus with and the other Eni, and then the another companies. Before Turkey, these all companies were there, but after Turkish action, now you can see from the dates, the Turkish ships, where are they? And now you cannot see these companies from that lines after the Turkish actions. And if we go to another case for the challenges is in Libya-Turkey Maritime Agreement. The Libya-Turkey Maritime Agreement, or the Agreement on Delimitation of Maritime Jurisdiction in the Mediterranean, is an exclusive economic zone agreement signed between the Libya's government and the national on 27 November 2029. This agreement means that the two countries can claim rights to natural resources in the Mediterranean. According to the Turkish part, this agreement is like both part win-win policy. Turkey will support with the security part, Libya's part, and Turkey will have another options for themselves. Another option means to protect their sea border line as well. And you can see this agreement signature from the United Nations because they have ratification. And I find the sample of this from the UN sources. And according to the Turkey, the Turkey determined its maritime jurisdiction in the Eastern Mediterranean based on international law, and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea is one of the important factors. These challenges is the rights of the islands and coastal territories, some boundaries. Turkey has disputes these claims, arguing that the proximity of islands to coastal violations principle of equity and maritime delimitation. So you can see these islands from here. In the Luzon Peace Treaty, it remains the sovereignty of Greece on the condition that it remains non-military status, these islands. Tassos, Sema Direkt, Limi, Bozbaba, and Midilli, Sakız, and Ipsara, Sisam, and other islands as well. From the Turkish part, Greece is not keeping their promises, and they arming the islands, and they are not obeying to these treaty rules. And this is the challenges between the Turkey, the agency, and also the Eastern Mediterranean part as well, because it's all having discussion. You can see also the Mace Island. Mace Island is in the East Mediterranean part. It's also one of in the last few years, one of the problematic situation, because according to the Turkish part, Greece are arming these islands, but they're supposed to not. Turkey applied to UN for this situation, but it's still a problematic situation, didn't solve the problems yet. So maritime imposes the important responsibilities for security in the Eastern Mediterranean basin. Yes, but can you hear me? The Eastern Mediterranean basin has taken an unstable outlook as the interventions, international actors. Factors: civil wars, territorial disputes, conflicts, and political instability in countries neighboring the Eastern Mediterranean have reacted, which threaten the security of strategically important regions. Is the fact that the Turkey is a regional power basin, which all actors concerned agree, imposes important responsibilities on it for establishing the security in the Eastern Mediterranean basin. It built its security strategy in the region holistic perspective aimed at protecting its border security as well as the security of the Eastern Mediterranean basin. So, conclusion part, Turkey, the Mediterranean policies involve protecting its strategic solutions, international law, diplomatic efforts, maritime law, energy cooperation, maritime security, and trade play active roles. Turkey promotes safety and fair relations, monitoring the development in the Mediterranean part. Turkey aims to avoid the conflict by maintaining dialogue with other countries. And fundamental goal of Turkey is the protect national and ensure the safety in the region, avoid the conflict in dialogue and cooperation with other countries. Thank you. And I would like to show some of the sources. Mainly I use the Ministry of Foreign and UN sources, and also Turkey Director of Communications. Thank you very much, and sorry for my internet connection. Unfortunately, I was trying to solve these problems today all the day.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I'm Alexandra. I am currently working in the Institute for Sociology at the Center for Social Sciences in Budapest, Hungary. And my colleague is Antonio García Cazorla, who's currently working in a EU Horizon on an EU Horizon project on minorities in rural areas and in Budapest in Minority Rights Group Europe. And as you can see, and as the chair already said, we will be talking about violence against women, two conventions more specifically, and our presentation will be bilingual, so both in English and in Spanish. Okay, just to give you a quick outline, we are going to talk about the terminology that we identify in relation to violence against women. We are going to talk about the human security from a gendered perspective. This is basically the framework of our analysis. And then Antonio will be speaking more in detail about the two regional human rights instruments, and I will give you the preliminary results of our comparison. So we looked at the European Institute for Gender Equality on their website, on the glossary, to look up the terminology. The first one we identified was violence against women. So basically, how they identify violence against women is a human rights and fundamental freedom violation, as you can read here. And this was reinforced in several documents. So it's a violation of human rights and a form of discrimination against women. Furthermore, we identified other terminology that we encountered, such as gender-based violence and gender-based violence against women. So to highlight what is the difference between these two, gender-based violence is violence directed against a person because of that person's gender, or a violence that affects a person because of a particular gender. We are not going to go into detail now about the difference between sex and gender, but this is more a social perspective that they are using. Then when we talk about gender-based violence against women, it's a more specific one. So any form of violence that is directed against a woman because she is a woman, or violence that disproportionately affects women. So these are the terminology that we are using. Now, if we turn to the gendered human security aspects, so maybe if some people know already about the international relations theories, when we focus on realism and neorealism and how they understand security, it's more focused on state security, on the survival of the state and everything. The main character, let's say, is the state. Then this human security concept emerged in 1994 in relation with human development. And furthermore, the security studies that we identified are the feminist security studies. And authors who are in line with who are working in this field are asking whose security are we talking about? So there is this question of whether we are focusing on the state or whether we are focusing on the individual level. Also, they are questioning the gender nature of some concepts, like what is violence, what is war, what is peace, peacekeeping, militarization, and soldiers, military. They are also questioning the essentialist approaches to these concepts. So they are questioning, for example, if we say something is masculine or something is related to men, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's associated with aggressiveness, with war, and the same way, like just because something is feminine or related to women doesn't mean that it's the opposite of masculine. So these are the essentialist approach that they are questioning. Furthermore, the gendered human security can focus on two aspects. One is the interstate and the other is interstate violence. So the interstate conflicts, as we are already experiencing in the European field right now, not just the European, but the interstate conflicts, for example, the armed conflicts, human trafficking. But when we go to the intrastate violence, there is a question of how rape, poverty, or environmental threats are addressed by the state. Then going through some legal documents that we identified that have this human security aspect. One of the first ones is that I will discuss later on is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW. Then there are two UN security resolutions. The first one is a resolution that recognizes that armed conflicts and war disproportionately affect girls and women, and there is also a unique way in which they are affected as a group. And the second one that is also quite relevant is recognizing that sexual violence is used or can be used as a tool or a tactic in armed conflicts. But going back to the CEDAW, it was adopted in 1979. There was an optional protocol added to it to establish the monitoring body, the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And basically it was the first international legal document that addressed women's rights specifically. The focus was on discrimination. So here you can see I scored what it means, discrimination, the distinction, exclusion, or restriction made on the basis of sex, which has the effect or purpose or impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or exercise of human rights and fundamental freedoms by women. Nevertheless, it was at the time a very ambitious convention. There has been some critiques against this focus on the discrimination that is more focused on equal treatment and not on the substantive rights. It's more focused on this formal equality instead of actually addressing the structural nature of the differences. So this is why our focus will be, from now on, the two conventions mentioned in the title. And here I will give the floor to Antonio.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Well, as my colleague have pointed out before, I will continue the presentation in English, and I will start presenting the Convention of Belém do Pará. Can you pass, please? Okay. La Convención de Belém do Pará fue adoptada en 1994 con el impulso de la Organización de los Estados Americanos, la OEA. Actualmente ha sido ratificada por 32 partidos miembros, solo 2 no la han ratificado aún, que son Estados Unidos y Canadá. Y algo muy relevante sobre este documento legal a nivel regional es que es el primer documento legal a nivel regional contra la violencia contra la mujer, que es vinculante. Otra cosa muy relevante es que no tenía un mecanismo de monitoreo hasta 2004, aunque a esto voy a volver después para explicarlo más en profundidad. Respecto al concepto de violencia, algo muy relevante y bastante innovador en aquel tiempo fue que entendía la violencia contra la mujer como un ataque directo a los derechos humanos. Por tanto, desde entonces este documento se convirtió en una de las herramientas más fundamentales para defender los derechos de las mujeres a nivel regional en América. También es muy relevante entender que la publicación no entiende la violencia contra la mujer fuera de una perspectiva de género. Entiende que esta violencia ocurre por razones de género, que son los roles y los estereotipos de género que existen y que presuponen unas ciertas características de dominancia del hombre sobre la mujer. Y bueno, también dentro de este concepto, los estados que han firmado y ratificado esta convención tienen una serie de obligaciones. Y lo primero es que deben entender la violencia contra la mujer como cualquier violencia, ya sea física, psicológica, sexual, independientemente del ámbito en el que ocurra, ya sea un ámbito público o privado. Y deben tomar todas las medidas necesarias para poder erradicar esta violencia y combatirla. Con respecto al monitoreo de su implementación, como he dicho anteriormente, originalmente la publicación no tenía una forma específica de cómo monitorearlo, simplemente algunos artículos incluían que había que monitorearlo, pero no era una evaluación continua, lo cual implica que no se hacía correctamente y no era objetiva. Esto se soluciona en 2004, 10 años después de que se adoptara el convenio, cuando se asentó MESECBI, que es el cuerpo independiente que monitorea la implementación de la Convención de Belém do Pará. Esta se basa en un intercambio entre este cuerpo independiente y los países firmantes y analiza el progreso de cómo se está implementando esta convención. Consta de dos fases. En la primera, directamente se envía un cuestionario por parte de este mecanismo a los diferentes países que estos contestan y se determina cómo están implementando, y además se generan una serie de recomendaciones que son medidas en la segunda ronda, en la cual los países tienen un cierto periodo de tiempo, no está claro el periodo de tiempo que era, depende un poco de cada ronda, para implementar estos cambios y se vuelve a evaluar si se han implementado esos cambios. Por otra parte está el Convenio de Estambul, que podremos decir que es la contraparte en Europa. Este fue adoptado en 2011, impulsado por el Consejo de Europa y entró en vigor en 2014 una vez tuvo el 10º partido, firmó la convención. Actualmente 37 países lo han ratificado, 44 estados partes lo han firmado y ha habido una retirada que ha sido Turquía. Cabe resaltar que de los 44 estados que lo han ratificado, uno es la Unión Europea como ente en sí, y hay una actualización muy importante y muy reciente, que es de ayer directamente, porque los miembros del Parlamento votaron sobre la posibilidad de ratificar el Convenio de Estambul, lo cual fue votado mayoritariamente a favor y actualmente y probablemente es de esperar que se ratifique oficialmente. Actualmente el Consejo de la Unión Europea tiene que aceptar esta votación y bueno, algo importante es que 6 Estados miembros de la Unión Europea han firmado este convenio pero no han ratificado, y el hecho de que la Unión Europea en sí lo ratifique no implica necesariamente que tengan que ratificarlo estos países. Con respecto al concepto de violencia que utiliza esta convención, se centra en 4 pilares fundamentales para poder frenar esta violencia. Primero es la prevención de la violencia, segundo es la protección contra esta violencia, la persecución de esta violencia y asegurar que existen políticas coordinadas para poder evitar la violencia. Además, también da por sentado que tienen que existir una serie de características para asegurar que esta violencia es erradicada. La primera es que exista una igualdad formal y real, es decir, que a nivel jurídico exista igualdad y a nivel social también exista esta igualdad. Además, también reconoce que esta violencia contra la mujer no es más que una manifestación del poder desigual que existe entre hombres y mujeres históricamente, y al final reconoce que la violencia contra la mujer no es más que la naturaleza estructural que tiene la violencia de género. de forma que existe una dominancia del hombre sobre la mujer y una forma de subordinar a la mujer hacia el hombre. Además, una cosa bastante innovadora de este convenio es el hecho de que hace una diferencia clara entre violencia contra la mujer y violencia doméstica, viéndolo como dos formas diferentes de violencia, y reconoce que la violencia doméstica, a pesar de que afecta desproporcionadamente a la mujer, también puede afectar a los hombres. De forma que también incluye a hombres dentro de esta violencia. Además, también incluye a niños y niñas que han presenciado violencia como víctimas directas de violencia doméstica. En este caso, el monitoreo tiene un capítulo entero dentro del Convenio de Estambul, en el cual tiene una serie de artículos los cuales se especifican cómo se hace el monitoreo muy detalladamente y cuáles son los cuerpos que están dentro de este monitoreo, que lo engloba Grevio, que sería el cuerpo principal, y los diferentes subcuerpos que tiene. Con respecto a Grevio, que es el cuerpo independiente de monitoreo de esta convención, está compuesto por 15 expertos independientes que, a través de una relación directa con cada uno de los países del convenio, desarrollan una evaluación por país que es publicada. Además, también se hacen una serie de recomendaciones que tienes que cumplir en un rango de 3 años y que vuelven a ser evaluadas para determinar si estos países han cumplido o no. Además, también cada cierto tiempo, actualmente solo existe uno, aunque sé que se está desarrollando otro, desarrolla lo llaman una horizontal review, que sumariza los principales hallazgos y problemas que se han encontrado en los diferentes países de forma conjunta. Well, now I will give back the floor to Alexandra, that she will speak a little about the comparison and conclusion between both conventions.
Thank you very much, Antonio. Like Antonio already pointed out, the comparison between the two conventions can be summarized as such. As you saw already, the big news from yesterday that the European Union is entering the Istanbul Convention. So it means, just to say, the Istanbul Convention is open for signature by any country. You don't have to be part of the Council of Europe to access this. But with the Belém do Pará Convention, it's only open to member states of the Organization of the American States. The monitoring body, we are still, we can't say for sure how much impact these monitoring bodies have compared with each other, because, for example, Grevio is just finishing its first round of the evaluation, as explained by Antonio. Meanwhile, the committee that is the monitoring body of the Belém do Pará Convention is already on its third one, not to compare it even with the CEDAW committee that has already been doing this monitoring business for quite some time. And what Antonio already pointed out, that with Grevio, maybe because the Istanbul Convention is a newer convention, but it was already included in the convention text that a monitoring body has to be established and how they work. Meanwhile, with the Belém do Pará Convention, it came 10 years later. For the concept of violence, we found that both conventions are more likely to use the concept of violence against women, if you remember the terminology that I showed. So violence against women is more likely to be used. As for the domestic violence, the Istanbul Convention, as my colleague pointed out, it's separate, violence against women and domestic violence. Meanwhile, in the Belém do Pará Convention, domestic violence falls under the umbrella of violence against women. In both conventions, they are more focused on intrastate violence, but nevertheless, there are some mentions of interstate violence. For example, in the Istanbul Convention, it says in Article 2 that this convention shall apply in times of peace and in situation of armed conflicts. And in both conventions, the question of vulnerability is raised, of vulnerability of specific groups of women. For example, they are raising based on race or ethnic background, being status as migrants, refugees or displaced persons. So in both conventions, there is some reflection of human security from an interstate violence perspective. And finally, when it comes to how it's implemented or controlled, apart from the monitoring bodies that are monitoring the implementation of these conventions, we found that in the Belém do Pará Convention, there is a possibility to file individual petitions to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights by victims of violence against women based on Article 7 of this convention. And what I found that really had a huge effect in Latin America is that there was this case of Paula Guzman Albarracin versus Ecuador. It was a case of a school student of 16 years old who was continuously sexually harassed by the vice principal of a state-funded school. And due to the harassment, according to the Commission's decision, due to the harassment and due to the fact that she was forced to carry out an abortion due to an unplanned pregnancy following the continuous sexual harassment, she died by suicide. So the mother of this child, with the help of the monitoring body of the Belém do Pará Convention and other NGOs, went to this Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to file a petition against Ecuador. And indeed, this commission confirmed that Ecuador did not do everything to prevent such harm to happen. And it led to the establishment of legally binding standards to prevent sexual violence and harassment in the school setting in Ecuador. So this is maybe not the best way to end it because it's a very sad story. But just to say that
sorry to interrupt you, but could you please wrap up?
This was my last sentence, that maybe it's a sad story, but it shows that indeed monitoring bodies and these commissions and courts have an effect on making sure that violence against women is indeed eradicated. So just the resources that we used, and thank you for the attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I am here to talk about the impact of the Mediterranean on logistics systems. How am I? As Dr. Clara kindly introduced me here, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Brazilian. I'm a PhD student in military science at National University of Public Service. Some of the index and topics we are going to talk about: logistics and supply chain, world trade, focusing on the Mediterranean Sea, the Mediterranean transport and logistics, some challenges and opportunities. Logistics is one of the most important sectors in structuring cooperation, socioeconomic development, and regional integration. One of the main columns of supporting the continuous improvement, especially on economy, and it's one of the indicators of global competence. The increased internationalization of cooperation requires a special emphasis on the global performance, on distribution and supply network. Trade, transport and logistics also promote cooperation and development, and it should be effective, because without this, we cannot develop the economy of the country. And as we are talking about logistics and supply chain, trade keeps the world connected. That's one of the main importance of the Mediterranean. And Effective logistics and supply chain management is essential for business to remain competitive in today's global economy. About the word sea trade route, the word maritime trade refers to the transportation of goods and products by sea between different regions and countries. It's a crucial aspect of the global economy, as shipping accounts for a significant portion of international trade. The maritime logistics is a vital component of global trade, as the majority of the international trades is conducted via sea transportation. Shipping companies and ports operator must work together to ensure that goods are transported efficiently, safely, and also cost-effectively across the international waters. Maritime transport is economically and environmentally the most effective way to carry out the transport of goods. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in 2018, maritime transport were 8% of the goods and 50% by volume, the 8% by volume, 50% of the oil, and also 70% by value. Okay, so here is a map about the Mediterranean Sea trade route. It refers to the historical network of the trade routes that linked the countries of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. As probably everybody know here. And both in Mediterranean Sea and worldwide, the weight of the logistics sector is really important. As I already mentioned, the logistics must be effective. Without this, the economy cannot develop. An efficient logistics system will contribute to reduce the total cost of the products for importing, exporting, and also in the distribution of domestic market. The Mediterranean has more than 450 ports and terminals, and it represents 50% of the world maritime trade. Also, it is leading the touristic destination in the world. You can see on the gray line the main maritime routes with a really intensive flow. Some of the challenges we are just suffering around the world, but especially in the Mediterranean, it's the security. Some of the maritime trade has been essential for the growth and development of many countries, particularly those who rely on export for economic growth. However, it's also subject for various challenges, including piracy, armed conflicts, economic challenges, geopolitical tensions, natural disasters, and also the environmental concerns. About piracy, the piracy exists for ages, but some of them are due to unemployment in some poorest region of the Mediterranean. Armed conflicts, like in Syria, Libya, Lebanon, Tunisia, Yemen, Sudan, can cause disruptions to the trade. If, for example, an armed conflict disrupts the trade in the Mediterranean arm, such as damage the infrastructure in ports or in the roads, even in roads, this could impact the flow of the goods between the Middle Asian countries and the Mediterranean region. Also, the increased oil price, as many Middle Eastern countries are major oil producers. Conflicts in this region can lead to disruption in oil supplies, especially if the oil increases the prices in the Mediterranean countries. It can cause an impact in the economy, as some of them relies on internal and import, or oil import. Also, one of the challenges is the refugees flow that Middle Asia especially could lead to an increase in refugee flows to neighboring countries, including the Mediterranean region. This could impact the economy in a number of ways, such as putting pressure on government to have social service, and also increase demanding for housing and other resources. Continuing with the challenges, these economic challenges, in 2008, the economic crisis, the Mediterranean coast was the most affected and it still did not recover in Europe from that, while the Arabic Spring and other chains create chaos in many countries, many African and Middle East countries in the region, which resulted in economic decline or even collapse. As a consequence, high inflation and huge immigration appeared. Many young people left the country, and whose right now the knowledge is missing from high tech in the industries and maritime, especially the maritime logistics. Another challenge, I used to say, the unpredictable things we cannot predict and say that will happen. So one of them is I don't know if you heard about it, the Ever Given, the ship accident. Ship from Evergreen Company is a container ship that became stuck in the Suez Canal on March 3rd, 2021, causing a major disruption to the global ship. The ship was en route from China to Netherlands, and when it ran aground in the narrow canal and blocking the passage for the other vessels and causing the traffic jam of various ships that could not go through the canal. A lot of efforts to dislodge the ship was complicated because of its size and the location of it. It happened. It was so narrow that it was not easy to take it off. The incident prompted renewed scrutiny of the shipment industry. Right now, there are these questions about the relevance and significant risks and challenge to navigation in narrow waterways. The incident also led to a backlog of cargo and delays in the global shipment. The disruption caused the trade loss estimation about $54 billion. The accident also highlighted the importance of the Suez Canal to the global trade, as the canal provides a vital shortcut between Europe and Asia for many ships. Another unpredictable challenge was the pandemic situation. During the pandemic, there was these curfews and quarantines, and then it was some of the ports were closed, and it was compulsory to I forgot the name right now, prioritize the ships, and then it also caused a global and economic disruption in the Mediterranean region. So I have a question for you: what we could do to avoid the unpredictable? And to conclude my presentation, I also would like to leave two questions for further studies. But right now, I would like to emphasize that the world maritime trade plays a crucial role in the global economy, even in the Mediterranean, as it has a really higher portion of the trade, the maritime trade. and facilitate this world maritime trade, facilitates the movement of the goods and products across borders and countries, and contributes to economic growth and development in many countries. So how could we achieve the fullest advantages of the ports among the ports of the Mediterranean, and how to develop the security in this region and improve the economy on these regions, as it has we can assure that it has a big impact on the global economy. And for today, it's done. Thank you for your attention.